So the reason this slide is here is because this really symbolizes to me that more than ever, we may feel that our freedom to live and work as we wish has been severely curtailed by an invisible entity. Click. Next one. Thank you, John. And that's because we're in unprecedented times. And the challenge with being in an unprecedented time is that we're not necessarily partially, let alone fully, prepared to deal with something that disrupts our world like the pandemic has. Next one. So what we're going to take a look at right now are some startling and upsetting, but I think good numbers that come from a survey that was conducted by Flex Jobs in association with the Mental Health America organization. And what they did was they surveyed 1,500 employees in the United States. The results came out in July. They're working on an updated version, and hopefully that'll be out before year's end. But this information also is based specifically on people's perception of HR. And 75% of the folks who were interviewed admitted that they have faced burnout at work, and 40% of them specifically cited the pandemic. Now, depression has risen by 102% since COVID, and that risk has risen by 305% for the 20 to 39-year-old population of employees. That's startling. Interestingly, too, Europe and Asia are seeing similar figures, and I'm tracking what's happening there because what happens there tends to then come here. 56% of those surveyed said that HR was not encouraging conversations about burnout. And 21% of them said that they were able to actually have productive conversations with HR about burnout. Now, for some folks, it's like, what else can HR do? This is ridiculous. And yet I look at it as good news because people need us. They really need us and they value us. Click. The upsetting number, though, and this is from Gallup, is that when burnout is not addressed, it can lead to serious mental health conditions and cost employers between $125 to $190 billion in lost productivity and healthcare costs. Okay, John, next one. Thank you. The top stressors that we're finding, again, number one, COVID. And related to COVID, personal finances, family health concerns, the economy, and job responsibilities. Now, you notice I missed one, and that's current events, because another stressor that's occurring is due to the current civil and social discord that's occurring and the current political situation. And number one on that list is the presidential election. All of these are coming together to create a perfect storm of stress. Click, next one. And that's why we get to be the resource for human beings. And indeed, this is where we come in. Click. So there are two different trains of challenges, if you will. And the first one are employees' fear of taking time off, either because they feel if they take time off, they won't be considered essential, or if they take time off, they're going to lose their jobs. The next part that feeds right into this is people are working longer hours. Now, the important piece to realize is they're working longer hours, but they're not necessarily being as productive as normal. And these two areas move right into burnout. So what can we do about that? Let's take a look at the next slide. So being the resource for human beings, what the people surveyed talked about was that they needed help in being flexible with their work days, either looking at how they could set a new schedule that would work for them and the organization, but also to setting healthy boundaries between work and home. 56% of folks needed help from HR with that. Also, encouraging time off. We see people are afraid to take time off. Many of us are too, I can imagine that. Also, people looking for mental health days. And by the way, that's not creating a new mental health day opportunity, although it could be, but it's saying to folks, you can use your CTO for your mental health. That's quite okay. And then if you notice, a dramatically smaller number said increasing CTO. Kind of curious, since folks aren't willing to use their CTO, but they want more. And then also from HR, they're looking for us to help them look at ways for self-care. Now, the second part of this challenge has to do with three big concepts. The first is relatedness, and this is a sense of belonging. And with the workforce right now, many of whom are working remotely, or even if they're on site, their lives are disrupted, they don't have a sense of belonging because they predicated their sense of belonging and relevance to the way things used to be. And this is new territory. With regard to competence or effectiveness, this is feeling that I'm competent in doing my job and that I'm growing and developing. Instead, as one client told me, I feel like I'm doing the dog paddle in hyper mode, and I suddenly realize I'm not even in the water anymore. And then finally, autonomy. Here, people want to be involved. They want to have control over their work lives, even a little bit. Let's take a look at what we as HR professionals can do to help out. The first is helping folks identify their priorities and reframing the conversation. And a lot of times this means talking with senior level managers and the executives to say, let's re-identify. We can't keep going at the same pace or have the same level of expectations we did before. Let's reframe this. And support well-being at all levels. And I'm going to get to our profession in a minute on that one. But this means not just our line workers, but also folks in the C-suite. Everyone is struggling with this. And for HR, showcasing empathy. You're understanding where folks are, but you're also helping them to figure out how to move forward. And that's a whole way of building resilience. I get knocked down, one of my favorite songs, I get knocked down, but I get up again. Nothing gonna keep me down. This is what resilience is all about. And showcasing vulnerability. This isn't about you pouring out your heart to people about what's going on, but it's your willingness to show that you are human too, and that you struggle, but you also figure out ways to address the situation. And finally, creating water cooler time. And for this, it's giving people the opportunity to socialize in some way with each other. Now, some folks during summer met outside in parks, and yet there's this growing interest in having Zoom water cooler time, where folks exchange information about the books they've read, the movies on Netflix they've seen, things like that. But creating the opportunity for that one-on-one time or group time that is not related to work. Again, it gives people that sense of connection. Okay, next one. Because here's the other part that we all know for ourselves and we need to remember about each other, is that well-being is extremely personal. And this is why it's important for us as professionals to have that individual connection and conversation with the folks we serve. Because there's no one-size-fits-all solution to this when it comes to promoting well-being. And by promoting well-being, we mitigate risk. And finally, last slide here, and this is about all of us, because your folks need you. When I first saw the stats, I was alarmed, like, oh no, HR, what are we doing wrong? And then I realized how far we've come as a profession, that people are actually crying out for our help. Before we can help them, we have to take care of ourselves and help each other. I'm going to end there because I'm between you and break. But again, as always, if you have questions, concerns, reach out. I am a resource for you humans. Take good care.